And spell your last name for the record.
It's Marvin Lugert, Lugert.
Mr. Lugert, were you in the room this morning when I went through the penalties for perjury?
Yes, I was.
And do you understand what perjury is?
Yes.
Being advised of the potential penalties for perjury, do you promise to tell the truth in this case today?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Jordy.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, can you just orientate us as to where your potentially affected land is and what you use that land for?
The land is located in mid 1/3 of Section 3, 13151, west 1/2 of the northwest 1/4 of Section 5, 13151.
And where, help us out with, I mean, was that near a certain town? What county are we talking also?
Liberty Grove Township, between Landowner, Wyndmere, and Lidgerwood.
I'm sorry, which county was that?
Oh, county, Richland.
Richland County, okay. And then which part of the county? North, south, east, west?
Sort of the middle.
Okay. All right, sort of in the middle. And again, the sections, can we get those sections again from that township?
Mid 1/3 of Section 3, 13151. The west 1/2 of the northwest 1/4 of Section 5, 13151.
And sir, do you live on one of those tracks?
No, I don't.
All right. And what type of activity occurs on each of those parcels?
Cropping.
Row crop.
Row crop.
All right. And are you a farmer to this day?
Yes, I am.
All right. And do you have any tenants, or do you do this yourself?
I have a renter and I farm myself.
All right. Very good. Have you been here all day, sir?
Yes, I have.
All right. And I'm sure you share a lot of the concerns that were expressed by your fellow landowners. Are there specific things that you'd like to highlight for the commission?
I guess what I would like to highlight is I've got 2 pipelines going across other land of mine, and they promised to put the land back the way it was supposed to be, separate the topsoil from the bottom soil, not to leave any debris behind. And they did not do a very good job of separating the top from the bottom. And I still got crop loss due to that. And where the pipeline is, I can still see 20 years later, just by looking at the crops, I can see it does not produce as good. You can see the height of the crops, less than what the rest of the field is. And after the pipeline was put in, 5, 6, 7 years, I don't remember for sure, I kept getting planks, big cables, tires, other things coming up, which they promised they would not leave any debris behind. So I have a very tough time believing that Summit will do the same. They'll leave stuff behind too, just because I can't be out there every day watching what they're doing. And I was promised by Alliance that they would not work when the conditions were not fit to work in, and they worked when it was just mud. So now I've got a depression where that pipeline is, full length of the section, the field, and water pools there and stays pooled there longer than any other place in that field. And also, the one that this is going across, I have rocks in now. And I know when they work on that, there's going to be a lot of rocks coming up. So, are they going to come out and take care of all the rocks that come up all the time after they dig that up? Or am I going to have to do that? I'm suspecting I will have to do it, because I don't think they're going to send somebody out to pick rocks for me. And I also know that the Alliance pipeline went across mine, and after that was installed, the next year it came up. They had to come out and put weights on it to keep it from coming up more. Big weights they put on it. So on my land, I can't remember for sure, I think it's about 24 inches from the surface now, instead of the 4 feet like they promised. I guess that's about all I have to say. And, yeah, I'm very concerned about going across my line and for them upholding their obligations.
So, sir, let me just ask just a few follow-up. So you've been through the whole process of the promises and everything's going to be great and there's not going to be any problems, and you live to see a different outcome on your field.
Yes, I have.
And you're concerned that the same type of promises with yet now potentially a third pipeline are going to end up being empty as they have been before.
I have heard the same promises from somebody as Alliance gave me.
And you have firsthand knowledge of a previous pipeline actually migrating up due to the changing conditions, weather, temperature, moisture in the soil.
Yes.
And so a pipeline that was once 4 feet over 20 years has come up to close to almost only 2 foot of cover.
Yes, it is now. And did that within a couple of years' time.
In a couple of years' time. All right. And so again, all the promises, all the happy, wonderful things in the world can be said, but you're living proof of promises being broken, and when people aren't looking, companies not doing the right thing. Is that right?
Yes.
Is there anything that Summit has said at all, or promised, or put in their pamphlets that makes you feel any better?
No, not a thing.
All right, sir. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. Malberg, any questions?
No, thank you.
Mr. Pelham, any questions?
Mr. Lugert, I'm just wondering what type of pipeline you have on your land currently.
I have a Alliance pipeline, which they put in, I believe they've got 3 or 4 different products they pump through it at different times.
You said 2 pipelines, so you have an Alliance pipeline. What's the other pipeline?
Dome. It was Dome. I don't know what it's called now.
Dome?
It was Dome.
What type of product was it transporting?
I do not remember what that was one my dad dealt with.
How long has the Alliance pipeline been in place?
22 years, if I remember right.
What about the Dome line, if you know?
That one, probably 40, 45 years.
Thank you, sir. I don't have any other questions for you.
Mr. Shook, any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Chrisman?
On your land in 13151, section 5, you kind of gave a more detailed description. Can you tell me that again?
Section 5,
Yeah, you said like
it's the west half of the northwest 1/4 of section 5.
west half of the northwest quarter.
Yes.
And looks like it's farm going north and south in this.
Yes, it
It's
is.
through the middle of it, and there's another farm off to the east of you, a half mile.
Yeah, it's the west 80 acres on that section.
Thank you. Is this tiled?
I am planning on tying that sometime.
And your other piece in section 3, is that tiled?
No, that was not tiled.
Thank you.
Commissioner Haugen-Hoffert?
Thank you. You talked about the pipelines that are there migrating up. Can you tell me the reasons why, in your opinion, why they're migrating up?
Well, all I know is that I have to pick rocks every year on my rocky ground, and that comes up because the frost pushes it up all the time. And I have rocks. I've got a boulder that I had to dig out one time that was 5 feet by probably 6 feet. And that kept coming up for quite a few years. It come up about an inch or 2. If you dig out a big rock and you excavate underneath it, it's got about a gap of that much, 2 inches, nothing underneath it. It's got a space. It just keeps pushing up.
So that frost comes down and then pushes it up.
I'm not sure how it works, but it does.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Mr. Dawson?
My question is, piggybacking on hers, are you saying that rocks push up the pipeline, or are you saying that rocks migrate to the surface because of the work?
Rocks migrate to the surface because of the way frost pushes stuff up. So I'm thinking that it'll push the pipeline up the same way.
No further questions. Thank you.
Maybe redirect?
Just briefly, on this question, the frost kind of heaves, and over time, it keeps pushing up foreign objects or even rocks that are in that area. Is that your experience?
Yes.
All right. Nothing more complicated than just Mother Nature and the temperature.
Yep, and that is why those planks and stuff came up from the Alliance pipeline. It kept working up over years.
And you mentioned on the yields have never been the same from when they tore up the ground for those prior pipelines.
Never.
You mentioned that you would like to do some tiling. Are you having second thoughts on both the cost and liability of doing that should the pipeline exist before you get the tiling done?
Yes, definitely.
And if you weren't able to tile, would that affect your yields and the moisture content or the moisture in your ground?
Yes, it does.
All right. So obviously that would be an economic detriment if you weren't able to tile in the future and have drier, more farmable ground.
Yes, because I can't get it in the ground as soon. I have to wait longer for it to dry out. And when it gets excess water, crops don't do as good either.
Right. Okay. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Malberg, any other questions?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Mr. Pelham, Mr. Shook, any further commissioner questions? Nope.